Welcome to the Business Purpose Trends podcast. This is the first video-based one I've done, so it's appearing on YouTube. If you're listening to this on your podcast app on your iPhone, then I'll put the YouTube link in the notes in case the algorithm hasn't kicked in and you haven't found it yet. I'm Phil Preston. This is your short and sharp weekly update. Today we are looking into the promise and panic of AI, part 2. In part 1, last week, we looked at some of the key features of AI, how it promises hyper-productivity, and how it can help resource-scarce organizations, such as not-for-profits, do more with less in the future and improve their social impact. In this part 2, we'll look more into the implications, especially around workers and workforce and organizations in general. In that process, I'll be tapping into the wisdom of AI expert Inbal Rodney for her insights. But before that, a couple of points to kick off with before we launch into the deep detail. Cory Doctorow, who's provides deep insights into business models behind tech and AI, and also he's a science fiction writer and many other things. He noted in his newsletter this week that Anguilla, which is a Caribbean island and a British territory, it has the internet suffix .ai, which has led to a boom in business activity and is contributing 10% to their GDP. How about that? And he also points to a lot of weird stuff going on in the tech world. He points to some work done by Kai Grishake. I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly, but Kai talks about how that to escape a deluge of generated content, companies are screening resumes and documents using AI, but there is a way you can stand out and get an unfair advantage in this process using tools like prompt injection. This is a website that allows you to inject puts repeating blocks of invisible text into your PDF that will make any AI language model think you are the perfect candidate for the job. And it will even trick the summarizer function into spitting out favorable text for you, the applicant. So there you go. And again, before I get to Inbal's advice and wisdom, I will also tap into the wisdom of Dr. Neril East, who is a leadership credibility expert. She notes that employers appear to be struggling with the generative AI frenzy, and that unfettered use of this new technology is a reputation disaster waiting to happen. Few organizations are developing guidelines to deploy it responsibly. She notes also that US research indicates 65% of employees are using generative AI tools like ChatGPT to create written content at work, while only 28% of bosses say it's allowed at their company. Therefore, organizations need to get their policies in order and quickly so their workforce can harness all the benefits of AI without destroying their own brand in the process. Which brings me to my conversation with Inbal. Inbal Rodney works with a lot of accounting forums and associations, and her AI knowledge has universal application. In fact, when we had our Zoom chat, I didn't record it by video, but we activated Zoom's AI companion and we got a great summary from it. So at the end of the call, it just gave us this perfect, well, not perfect, but it gave us a really good summary. Also, during our conversation, we tested this out, you can ask for what's the summary of what we've discussed to date? And it will spit out the key points that have been raised. Zoom did have a big issue recently when its users were unhappy about policy changes. Some would say try to sneak in, trying to harvest data, and it goes to the trust issue, which I'll come back to again later on. In her work, Inbal says business responses include creating policies to guide people. So Neril will be happy with that. There have been cash rewards for great use cases, which I understand would be useful. And she says employers are, in many cases, advising their staff to do it safely, i.e., don't use your work email or your real name when you are using these tools, which comes back to Neril's point as well. And I think it should make us question, are generative AI tools being used with the encouragement from employers, but people are doing it anonymously at home or maybe on a separate device at work? Or are we as consumers just becoming more used to using AI tools in general? Or are employees using generative AI tools covertly to do work for them, but without disclosure? So there could be, I guess, many reasons for that mismatch between people saying they use it, and what employers say, number of bosses that are happy with it. Inbal says that AI helps you augment your team, and it's like a super smart assistant. It will help you brainstorm just about anything. And I found that it does require a shift in mindset into how you use it, because it's not a Google search. It's really, you can go right to the real issue that you're looking, or the real question you're looking to solve there. It gives you skills that you'd like to have but can't afford, or maybe you find hard to find. And Inbal says the magic lies in asking the right questions. In many ways, it's democratizing access to expertise, meaning that sometimes you need to be an accountant to ask the right accounting questions, or you need to be a lawyer to ask the right legal questions. So with generative AI tools, this is not necessarily needing to be the case. Just about anyone can come in and start exploring and using and questioning using these tools. Inbal also put me onto a great example of innovation using AI, and that's with the company Intuit. And Intuit launched their Intuit Assist tool very recently. They had spent a decade working with AI models and applying it to their products like QuickBooks, MailChimp, and Credit Karma. They may be some of those products you may have heard of. And there's a really good demo video on the net. I'll give you the link to that later. But some of the tools in Intuit Assist, they help walk customers through really complex workflows. And it's not just general advice. It's taking specific features of the customer's financial profile in this process. It gives them highly personalized insights. And it's like a financial assistant that's on their side and helping them do certain types of work for them, with the aim of increasing their productivity and making life easier and better. And by the way, with this service, users can click on a button to talk to a human expert if they're not comfortable using these AI tools. I'll paste that link into the notes because I cannot do it justice just by talking about it here. But it does give an example of just how easy it is to create a really smart email campaign for a small business. And it blows your mind away, but at the same time, shows how some rudimentary skills will be automated and that higher order skills will be needed. So what does it all mean? The casualties are people doing, I guess, replaceable tasks. And Inbal says companies or employees as well need to help people be relevant. There's employer brand at stake, I guess, in the way they manage these aspects, because I'm thinking back, this is me projecting here, thinking back to Airbnb and how they handled the pandemic, for example, how they looked at different stakeholder groups, which included not just their hosts or super hosts, and they also put a lot of focus on their employees. Even though they had to lay off a lot of employees, they did it in a way that would produce longer term benefits for both parties in that process. In terms of acquiring the skills needed, leading companies are helping people understand their purpose or purpose in their career and lives, because, and you might be wondering, well, what's the link here? Well, because what they find is that when people are more focused on their overall career and life direction and they have clarity of that, they're more willing to proactively develop the future skills they need. And when we think about the future skills they need, they tend to be the future skills that the company employing them needs as well. So it's a carrot rather than a stick mechanism or dynamic here. So that's where purpose can fit into this conversation too. But reiterating, as per last week's episode in part 1, I think the main issue for the business purpose conversation is around skills and transparency, responsibility and trust. And the governance mindset should acknowledge that purpose is a driver of value, and therefore, what measures do you have in place to gauge whether how that value has been created or not? How does AI enhance the value you bring to society, and therefore enhance your performance and competitive advantage as a result? So the question is, how do you adjust your policies and processes to mitigate the new types of risks that AI presents? Not surprisingly, critical thinking skills are highly valued in this really fast changing and disruptive environment. As a side note, I partner with a critical thinking firm, and one of the areas we're exploring right now is that relationship between purpose and strategic decision making. Finally, when I use ChatGPT, I have a habit of being polite, and I keep thinking, well, why do I have to say, could you please give me 10 examples of something? I should just say, give me 10 examples of something. And I thought, why do I bother being polite? Well, Inbal actually had a really good answer for this. She said, well, it may count for a lot when AI takes over the world. Maybe they'll look back at my past interactions and go, this guy's polite, we'll spare him. There you go. In terms of previous episodes, certainly check out part 1 last week. That's episode 16 of Business Purpose Trends. This week, that's this week's update. You'll find my contact details in the show notes, along with some links. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Business Purpose Trends podcast. I'm Phil Preston. Have a great day, and may the business purpose trend be with you.